Anine, I'm Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, and you are listening to Native Roots Radio.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot. Hey, Kadagi to all my friends and relatives in four directions. You are listening to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot. Hey, we discuss local and national Native news and events, and as you know, Haley, Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues.
Yes, you are right, Dega. This portion of the show is supported by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
We are so humbled and happy to have Minnesota Lieutenant Governor Flanagan and Wisconsin Lieutenant Governor Sara Rodriguez on. I want to just say a big how are you guys doing? Thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Thanks so much for having us. I get to be with one of my favorite LGs with two of my favorite radio hosts.
Yeah,
right
I'm so
on.
happy to be here. This is great. Thank you so much for having me.
This is really great. This is our dream. Haley and ours have dreamt about doing this for forever. Hey, Lieutenant Governor Flanagan, last night you were a big part of a Native Women and Two-Spirit National Zoom. That was amazing, and I got a chance to watch some of that and see some of the play.
Thank you. It was so much fun. We had over 1,800 people register. We raised over $35,000. Of course, had Sharice Davids and Auntie Deb stopped by. We had organizers from all across the country who work on environmental issues like Jade Begay, and folks like Leash Kozlowski from Minnesota, who's a state representative. And I think you could just really feel the momentum and the excitement, and of course had the amazing Janice Meeting as our host. And people should get ready. We'll have a larger Native Voters for Harris kickoff in the coming weeks, and we'll just have so many opportunities for folks to engage all across Indian country. I'm excited, and I know that we're ready to get to work.
Yeah, we really are. Lieutenant Governor Rodriguez, we were really happy and surprised, and then the 24 hours happened, and now I think our friend Vice President Harris has over $200 million in her coffers. Oh my goodness, we are just stoked here, and people are jumping aboard, and we are excited.
Yeah, I can tell you, she came to Milwaukee. I got to meet her on the tarmac. It was so wonderful to be able to welcome her to my state, to my city. And then she went and did her first rally. And the excitement in that room was palpable. I have to tell you, people are so excited to be able to vote for Vice President Harris. And she has been able to get dollars in the door. And over 60% of those dollars, that huge number that you just mentioned, those are first-time donors. Mm-hmm. And so when you're talking about people who may not have been engaged before, they saw Vice President Harris and they were willing to put their money into her campaign so that she can win this November.
Lieutenant Governor Flanagan, we've been, our friend, I think, has called our friendly orange people and the JD person weird, and I got to get a T-shirt that says that.
I'm sure there will be some that will be printed. Of course, my governor has absolutely been on the circuit and mentioned that these guys are just weird, and I think that's right. And I also think that they're dangerous. It is very clear, right? They have said that they want to be in the exam room. They want to decide what books people are going to read. They want to prevent certain communities, Indigenous folks included, right, throw up obstacles to our access to the ballot box. That's weird, right? And it's dangerous. And so I think we couldn't have a better contrast in having Vice President Harris be our nominee, who is a proven, highly qualified leader. Of course, she was a district attorney, attorney general, a United States senator, and also the vice president of the United States. And Lieutenant Governor Rodriguez and I know a little something about being second in command. And what that means is that you are a governing partner. And Vice President Harris has been a governing partner to President Biden. She is prepared. She is ready to go. And I cannot wait to watch her debate Donald Trump. Exactly.
Lieutenant Governor Rodriguez, we've seen some polling lately, and the Republicans didn't seem like they got much of a jump after their convention, but we got a nice jump in a lot of states that are purpley like your own because of the way the districting's happening in our great state of Wisconsin. But there's excitement, and people like my producer Haley here, the Gen Zs are engaged.
They really are. The Gen Zs are engaged, and you couldn't be a starker contrast with this as well. I have 2 kids that are 15 and 17, and my son's a senior in high school, and some of his contemporaries are going to be able to vote this November. And so they are excited now to register to vote. They are excited to vote for Vice President Harris. And there are many, many things within the policy arena that I think are very interesting to Gen Z members. And again, the contrast could not be more clear. When you're talking about environmental regulations, Donald Trump wants to get rid of environmental regulations. Vice President Harris wants to protect our environment. If you're looking at student loan relief, as somebody who went to school on student loans, my mom was a teaching assistant. My dad fixed telephones. There weren't a lot of money for me to be able to go to school. That's a big deal for folks to be able to go to school and have that student loan debt relief, be able to buy those houses, to be able to participate in the economy in a more robust way. And so I do think that Gen Z is going to be able to look at this and see that their choice for president has to be Vice President Harris.
Well, the contrast is there, Lieutenant Governor Flanagan. You mentioned just a few things. There's many things, and it's great to see the state of Minnesota still a good 10 points for Harris ahead, and we have not voted for a Republican president since 1972, and I don't even know what happened then. That was Nixon.
Well, I think we've got a pretty good track record, but we're not taking anything for granted. And I think that this election, really, the spotlight will be on Indian country. We are strategically located in swing states all across the country. So making sure that you are registered to vote, the folks in your family are registered to vote, and that you're talking about the importance of this election. Project 2025 wants to do Trump's Project 2025, wants to do away with the Department of the Interior. They're not big fans of tribal sovereignty. Our existence is on the line. And I think today it is so poignant that the abortion ban, Trump's abortion ban, just went into effect in Iowa. That is also on the line for us. So you're welcome in Minnesota, our neighbors who need access to abortion, but let us be absolutely clear. If Donald Trump gets elected, abortion will be outlawed across the country. And that is why, as a mom of an 11-year-old daughter, I am fiercely supporting Kamala Harris for president, because I want her to have sovereignty over herself, the way that she's able to be governed, but also over her own body and the healthcare choices she makes in the future.
Well, I'm so happy and excited that you two were able to make it for the opening of the show. We got 2 minutes left, and Lieutenant Governor Rodriguez, I want to give you a minute, and then I want to give another minute to our friend, Lieutenant Governor Flanagan, to close this segment out.
So, number one, thank you so much for having me. And I couldn't agree with Lieutenant Governor Flanagan more. I'm a nurse by background. And the thought of having a national abortion ban, which is what Trump wants to implement, there will be no safe place for women to go. And that is terrifying to me as a clinician. We know that reproductive health care is health care. And that's what Vice President Harris is really fighting for. And I would say anybody who's out listening there right now, make sure you are registered to vote. Make sure you've got a plan to vote. And talk to your friends and neighbors. Have those difficult conversations. Talk to them about what's on the line, because it is going to be so important this November.
Lieutenant Governor Flanagan, you're up.
This is the candidate who is all about freedom, our freedom to make our own decisions, to live the life that we want to live, to love who we want to love. And I am so excited, and you can feel the energy, right? 170,000 volunteer shifts, $200 million in donations. Get on this train. Indian country is so important to this election. And I know that we are going to turn up and turn out. Last night was just an example of it. We've got 98 days to get her across the finish line.
Thank you to Big Peggy so much for being on and starting out this show. Have a great day. We'll see you soon.
Unwanted sexting or photos, inappropriate jokes, even tickling or wrestling can feel like a violation. Catcalling, cornering, or groping, getting them drunk or high for sex, recording sexual acts without permission, hurting someone because of their sexual orientation, raping a family member, a child, a date, a friend, a stranger, purchasing a human being for sex. You make the choice every single time. Sexual violence is many things. Make a choice. Do not do it.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Hey, it's Robert Pilot. I want to talk to you about the rising energy costs and how you can manage them with the help of 952 Windows. Many people have plenty of insulation in their roof and attic, but the next significant step for energy savings is installing energy-efficient windows and doors. My good friend owns 952 Windows, a part of Loyal Home. They did a remodeling job on our home 20 years ago and definitely did a better job than the other guys. I've talked to neighbors over the years that experienced contractor problems with those other guys, especially when their window and door upgrades fell short in quality and energy efficiency. But when we made our second floor addition to our home, we used 952 Windows and received an excellent price and exceptional workmanship. Since then, we've seen much lower energy bills. So for your next home remodeling project, go with 952 Windows. Trust me, you won't regret giving them a call at 952 Windows or 952windows.com.
It's back to school time, which means getting back to school ready. One important thing to add to your to-do list this year is making sure your child is up to date on their vaccinations. Getting vaccinated will help your family avoid missing out on school, activities, work, family events, and vacation. Keep your family healthy by talking with your healthcare provider or visiting our free vaccination clinics in Minneapolis. Visit the City of Minneapolis website and search for vaccine clinics. A message from the Minneapolis Health Department.
You're listening to Native Roots Radio. This is Spirit from Reservation Dogs. Get up and listen.
Welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is supported by Native-owned J.S. Bean Factory off Randolph Avenue in St. Paul. Only the good stuff keeps us awake.
Hey, welcome back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and I'm your host, Robert Pilot. Hey, I am here at the DNC, and I ran into our friend Ruth Buffalo. Thanks, Ruth, for spending some time with us and our listeners.
Yes, Dosha, hello, and Madzagads, thank you for having me.
Well, I feel the excitement here. I don't know about you, but I'm really stoked, and it's really been a positive experience for me, and I just feel really positive about what's happened here at the DNC.
Yes, for sure. There's a lot of energy here, and it's always amazing to see our sister and relative, Lieutenant Peggy Flanagan, speak. So yes, always so inspiring to see her speak. I remember seeing her speak at the DNC on TV, my mom's living room, sitting there watching her on TV when she was a state legislator, and I just remember feeling so proud to see her on TV.
That's funny you bring that up, because I believe what I heard, and I could be wrong, is that she was the first Native American ever to speak at the DNC. And I remember that was right during Standing Rock, and all these things were going on.
Yeah, that's a good question, or good. We could definitely fact check and
Google it.
Yep, Google it. But I wouldn't be surprised if she was, because she's just been a force and always really willing to bring others with her. I remember mentioned that I think on the last segment, where it was after the 2016 election and people were pretty down in the dumps with the results, and they just so happened to have a Wellstone Action at the time had a Roots camp in Washington, D.C. the end of November, and signed up to go and met Peggy there. Ran into her. And then someone didn't show for her scheduled panel, so she invited me to be on the panel with her. And it was called the Unconference, but it was so fluid and organic, so it was cool. So she truly, I believe, stands by the words that she speaks and bringing more people with her, for sure.
Well, I believe it, and that's a great story. I always, and I say this on the show, and I've said it probably a million times with you, is that when I was teaching high school, I was always so thankful, even, when she was a state legislator and then became lieutenant governor, that our kids could see someone that looks like them. And I can't imagine the celebration when the VP Harris and Walz win and we have a new governor in Minnesota.
Yes. It just brings me back to earlier days, when she was, I believe, working for Wellstone Action, and she came in as a presenter on community organizing. And I believe I can't remember which cohort I was in, one of the earlier cohorts for the Native Nations Rebuilders Program through the Bush Foundation, but that was when I was at Tribes, and that's when I first met her, and she was so energetic and just so full of passion, and you could just see clearly her love for the community.
And she does have all that, but also wicked smart, and what a great speaker. Really, I've seen her at many different things over the years, and it's just this is not the same canned speech. They all are awesome, and they all have to do with whatever's happening. And that's a gift, because we see our national people, and they say a lot of the same stuff over and over in different states. But, that's just amazing that how well of a speaker she is. And obviously I'm not.
Oh, no. Yeah, no, for sure. Just hearing you speak just brought me back to when I got to hear her speak this past spring at the Minneapolis American Indian Center, and she shared her history there and how she met her dad for the first time at the Indian Center back in the day. And that story resonates with so many of us, who were raised by single moms and have unique stories when we first, remember meeting our dads too. So. Yeah,
definitely. So really excited. And were you in the bowl last night?
I was in the fishbowl. Yes. Yep. I'm an automatic delegate, finishing out my 4-year elected term with the North Dakota Democratic Nonpartisan League as their DNC committee woman. And yeah, it was lots of energy for sure.
Well, there was a couple people that spoke, and for me, it was great to see AOC. And I don't know if you remember this, and I forget all the time. 2 things. She spoke last time, and she introduced Bernie, which I was a big Bernie supporter, and she spoke for 90 seconds. Last night, she hit it out of the ballpark. It was unbelievable. And what really, really makes me happy and proud in a uncle kind of way is that she started her career, basically, she went to Standing Rock.
Yes, that is true. Yeah, that is amazing, and something to note that the impact that Indian country has on today's leaders and future generations ahead. So yes, I think that's a good point to make, that we are at the center of everything and that we should always be front and center as the original inhabitants of these lands.
Wow, great words. What about who did you like? I thought Hillary. I voted for Hillary, and I believe that was one of the best speeches that she ever made, personally. And I've been around politically listening to speeches for a while.
Yes, it was. I think it was just a day full of great, passionate speakers. Senator Cory Booker came to the Native Caucus and really, some people were saying, brought us to church, as he was sharing some pretty heavy, tearful, heartfelt stories. And there were a couple women from the North Dakota delegation sharing that they were sitting in the crowd and they were in the back of the room crying. And these were non-Native women that, came in as allies to witness the Native Caucus. But for myself, I was, keeping my tear ducts in place, intact, until the evening where the 3 different women were up on the stage and shared their stories and how the abortion ban had impacted their lives. And so that really, left them in life or death situations, and that for them to, share the stories, and it just hit you. It hit my heartstrings for sure, and tear ducts, and so I think the women and their the stories of the 3 women and what they shared was really heartfelt, and that's I think what I think on the the final woman, the 3 women that were standing on stage, and the final one of the 3, when she was speaking, you couldn't hear a pin drop in the whole entire arena. I also enjoyed Coach Steve Kerr speaking. When they were showing the videos, we thought, what is Michael Jordan going to come out? This was for many of us our first convention, our in-person convention. Many of us were Bernie delegates on the online COVID pandemic convention that was virtual, but for many of us, this was our first in-person convention as delegates, and so it was amazing to hear, Coach Stephen Kerr crack some jokes, and but also talk about the history and the champion spirit within the United Center, and so it was it was good to hear words spoken from President Biden and the need to actually listen to the protesters outside of the building, and that they have a point, and that we do need to end the war. So I thought that was amazing and really good to hear that public pressure is working, and also, just carrying Leonard Peltier with us here in every space and pushing for his freedom.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because I saw some videos on Facebook, and it looks like Indian Collective is here, and I saw a big Free Leonard Peltier banner. A big shout out to them, and let's keep it going here. And it's hard to see people that aren't here and could be here, and the attack on Native Americans is never over, and it won't be over until he's released.
Exactly. I think with everything that's going on in the world, everything's connected, but yes, I think for me it always goes back to Leonard, and the fact that he is still sitting behind bars, he's still being mistreated. It's a grave injustice, and the DNC did pass a resolution September, I think it was maybe 2 Septembers ago, when we were out in Baltimore, and it unanimously passed. It was a resolution urging Biden to grant Leonard Peltier clemency. So that is on record, and that is here within the DNC. And so I hope the DNC remembers and never forgets that they did pass a resolution urging President Biden to grant Leonard Peltier clemency.
Well, it would be nice, too, and especially when he only has 4 months left, to pardon him. We've been waiting a long time, and many presidents, and the time is now or never, and we really want Uncle Leonard to come out and smell the free air that he deserves.
Yes, 100%.
Well, we just got a minute here left in this segment. What else are your thoughts about last night?
I think trying to make these processes available for everyone so that everybody understands how to become a delegate, how to get into these spaces, I guess you could say, because not everybody has this information readily available. It's kind of more of like I don't want to say indoctrination, but some of the people here, it's generational, whether it's state lawmakers, lawyers, and their children, and then their children's friends, and we need to open it up more to everyday people.
Let's talk a little bit about that next segment, because I got a few things, too, I want to say. Hey, this is Native Roots Radio, and we're here with Ruth Buffalo at the DNC here in Chicago. We'll be right back. Minnesota has the only original wolf population in the continental United States.
And 80% of Minnesotans believe the wolf should be protected.
Howling for Wolves is asking Minnesotans to respect our true wildlife manager, the wolf.
Their survival is critical to our ecosystems, our communities, and even our economy.
As highly intelligent animals with strong social bonds, Minnesota wolves deserve to be protected and admired.
Learn more at howlingforwolves.org. Let's live and let howl.
Discover the emotional depth and vivid storytelling of Jay White's Arikara Proper at All My Relations Arts in Minneapolis. This solo exhibition celebrates Arikara culture through the lens of an urban Indian perspective. Experience themes of empowerment, depictions of Native women, stars, and star quilts within White's vibrant acrylic paintings. Arikara Proper is showing now through October 5th at All My Relations Arts in Minneapolis. Get inspired by Jay White's powerful storytelling on canvas. Details at allmyrelationsarts.org.
The city of Minneapolis is now on Native Roots Radio with Minneapolis AIR. AIR stands for American Indian Relations. Guest host Christine McDonald talks to people about important things affecting the city's Native communities. Minneapolis AIR dives into topics like public safety, public health, elections, and so much more. Tune in to Minneapolis AIR on Native Roots Radio from 5 to 6 p.m. on the second Wednesday of every month, right here on AM 950.
It's back to school time, which means getting back to school ready. One important thing to add to your to-do list this year is making sure your child is up to date on their vaccinations. Getting vaccinated will help your family avoid missing out on school, activities, work, family events, and vacation. Keep your family healthy by talking with your healthcare provider or visiting our free vaccination clinics in Minneapolis. Visit the City of Minneapolis website and search for vaccine clinics. A message from the Minneapolis Health Department. Everyone likes a litter-free ride on Metro Transit buses and trains, so pitch in. Take pride in your ride and take your trash off with you when you get off at your stop. You'll find trash bins at every Metro station. Want to help clean up transit stops in your neighborhood? Join the hundreds who volunteer to adopt a stop and keep it picked up. Learn more at metrotransit.org/adopt-a-stop. That's metrotransit.org/adopt-a-stop.
Get ready for live wall-to-wall coverage of the Democratic National Convention right here on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. Starting tonight, we're bringing you all the excitement straight from Chicago, featuring the biggest political stars and the most crucial speeches of the year. Tune in tonight and tomorrow from 7 p.m. until 10 p.m. Then on Wednesday, we're live from 7 until after 10, as our own Governor Tim Walz takes the stage, showcasing how Minnesota became a progressive beacon in the Midwest. Finally, on Thursday, join us from 7 p.m. until after 10 p.m. as Vice President Kamala Harris delivers her highly anticipated speech to close out the convention. Our coverage is hosted by Dom and Crude from the Devil's Advocates radio show, bringing you unparalleled insight and analysis. And unlike the Republicans, this convention promises to be anything but weird. It's all about progressive action and vision for the future. Don't miss a minute of the Democratic National Convention tonight through Thursday right here on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Cloudy tonight with a low of 61, then sunshine returns Wednesday with a high of 78. Live coverage of the Democratic National Convention continues tonight on AM 950 starting at 7 o'clock. Dom and Crude from the Devil's Advocates continue the festivities from the United Center in Chicago. That begins right here on AM 950 at 7 o'clock tonight.
Hi, this is Representative Sharice Davids from Kansas. I'm Ho Chunk, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
And we're back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is supported by Native Concrete and Masonry. Support Native businesses. Check out their work at nativeconcretemasonry.com and give Chuck a call at 612-597-0421.
And I am here with our friend Ruth Buffalo, and we're here at the DNC. Welcome back, Ruth.
Yes, Mods-a-Good-Odds. Thank you for having me.
We were just to end that segment, and it really was powerful, and I thought what you said, and I didn't want to hurry you off, but I'd like to talk a little bit more about that inclusiveness that you talked about that I don't see a lot of here at the DNC. I as a former teacher, really feel like even, my 63 years old, we were not taught a lot of government. We took like maybe one quarter or one trimester of it when we were seniors. So I don't know. We teach science and math from day one. I think this is just as important.
Yeah, no, 100%. I believe it's so important to share this information, because what we see and what we learn and what we find is that, there are certain families, or certain demographics who may have this information readily available, or it's just a part of their upbringing or their, and so we have to sort of catch up, I guess, in a sense, where voting becomes second nature, or where running for office becomes second nature, and it just becomes the norm. And I think we are, thankfully following the lead of so many others who have cleared a path for us, or as they say, broken the glass ceiling, or shattered it. And so it's our job to continue to widen the path forward. But yes, for sure. And I think there's a school in West Fargo that offers a civic engagement course, and that was something we were looking at when I was a part of the Native Nations Rebuilders Program through the Bush Foundation. We were looking at trying to, we could each focus on a project of our interest, and I was interested in getting the youth more involved to be more civically engaged, be more involved in the processes, because I remember when I was finishing my undergrad in criminal justice, I took a course on government, but it was covering county every level of government and the difference in jurisdictions, and it was really interesting to me just to learn the different functions, and I really think that those kind of baseline knowledge is so good to have, because not everybody has it, and then the more you learn, and then the more you see how it directly impacts your quality of life. And I remember when I ran for office the first time in 2016, statewide race for insurance commissioner, but a lot of my first cousins who, in Indian way, it's they're your siblings, and a lot of my older first cousins, my siblings, sister cousins would say it was the first time they voted ever, outside of a tribal election, and that really inspired me as well. But it gave me, a sense of pride, but more so hope, because we were, losing a lot of family members at the time too, prematurely, and it was how do we lift the family up and try to bring something positive forward? And that was kind of one way to take the dive and, put yourself out there and run for office, but, doing it understanding that it's something bigger than yourself and it's for the greater good or the greater whole or the community.
Wow, that's super powerful, and then it makes me think of how powerful the Native vote is, and we know in Minnesota with the governor, lieutenant governor, the new 10,000 people they voted that they registered up north. Not everyone, of course, voted for them, but that helped them push to become governor and lieutenant governor, and the Native vote is so important, and there's so many reasons why, and we need to. I don't know, I guess I'm on my soapbox, Ruth, and one of the things is that I can't be a one-issue voter, or I'll be really discouraged, and I guess I've really learned to play the long game, and we've been lucky here in Minnesota that the long game has worked this last couple of sessions.
Yes, for sure, and I think Minnesota is quite the powerhouse in what I've learned at the national level, being a North Dakota's DNC committee woman for these past 4 years. Term ends Thursday night, but is just seeing the powerhouse of Minnesota, and a lot of it, they say, has been attributed to the Wellstone, Paul Wellstone, and the Wellstone Action, and all of the organizers that went through there, and I was fortunate enough to kind of catch them at the tail end, at the Roots camp in end of November out in D.C., 2016. But yes, for sure, it's important. The Native vote is so important and should never be underlooked or overlooked, and not taken for granted. And so some of the things I've learned in being in these spaces at the national level with the DNC is that, we still have to push for representation here, I remember, and so it's interesting. I've met people from Montana, like Donovan Hawk. He's from the Crow tribe, and he's a sitting legislator from Montana. And then Jason Prettyboy, he used to work and go to school at United Tribes Technical College, and he's a DNC committee man for Idaho, and Donovan is for Montana. So it's cool to see the Native representation across the country, and it's even in the Plains area, and the good work that needs to continue moving forward. But yes, also really good just to see that it's so important to show up and to continue to show up and be consistent. My daughter, she's a second policy rep for the District 27 in Fargo, and so that means she has a vote at the state policy committee level, and she can vote for party platform and party officers, the leadership. And so it's so important to continue to show up. It's all volunteer, but it's meaningful work in helping change lives for the better.
Well, one of the things I think Minnesota finally got, and maybe you've experienced it too in your lifetime, is when the politicians come, beg for your votes, and then you never see them again until election time. Well, that doesn't happen in Minnesota because we have Native representation, and also we have and had a governor that I didn't know that he worked at Pine Ridge at first until he ran for vice president here. I had no idea. I thought I knew everything about him, but I see the politicians are visiting the tribes year round and checking in, whether it's Red Lake or Leech Lake, all those tribes up north that are not in the political bubble, but they are because they were asked to do things like vote for them, so they're staying plugged in. But I see that as a different thing, and maybe a good thing that maybe the other national people in other states should take heed to.
Yes, for sure. I know Minnesota enacted a state law regarding meaningful tribal consultation. So you always hear consultation doesn't mean consent, and free, prior, and informed consent is so important. But yes, I think Minnesota is definitely leading the way in what they have done with tribal-state relations, and that meaningful consultation is so very important. Building relationships and not having those transactional relationships is also critically important to our future generations. And yes, definitely many good models to replicate from the state of Minnesota in terms of tribal state relations, but also just everything that they've done, free lunch, free school lunch. The first MMIR office. There's so many things. And I remember hearing here at the DNC level, because I'm also a member of the executive committee at the DNC here. And when Minnesota would come in and show, and they would talk about, they would show the results and everything, because Ken Martin also holds a position within the DNC with his role, and just really inspiring to hear and see everything that's been done in Minnesota. But one of the key things that I remember hearing is just that the importance of action that was taken from a state with their political landscape, and sort of compared it to other states with the same political landscape as Minnesota, and the lack of action that was taken, so it's kind of, and I remember hearing Governor Tim Walz share that last fall when he came to Fargo for a fundraiser, the Burdick dinner, and he shared, you got to do the most you can when you have that kind of quote unquote power, and that really resonated with me, because when I was in office, North Dakota meets every other year, and we don't meet every year, and so I felt like when I got in, we kind of had to play catch up, because, and then you don't get to meet every year, and then I think doing the most you can with the time that you have is so important, to be bold and to do as much as you can to help the people.
Well, this is a question that I don't know if you can answer, but in your short lifetime, and now you have daughter and you have son and you have other children, and things are moving good in a good way in the last 20, 30 years, and even especially the last 5-10 years, I'd say. What are your hopes for your children? I mean, your daughter's engaged. Is she going to be the next president, or is she going to, or just be happy and healthy? And, what are your hopes?
Gosh, I hope that our children, everyone's children, continue to, do what they love and lead with love, So I don't want to put pressure on anyone. But I just hope that they will continue to move the work forward. I remember there were times where it was very challenging in my second session in the legislature within my 4-year term, and it was right in the middle of the pandemic, and it was a polarizing time. And I remember thinking that, someday my grandchildren, maybe great-greats, will be in these same spaces, and they'll be doing some amazing work. Yeah. That's
a great thought, and that keeps us going. Ruth, it's always a pleasure, and it's really always fun, and I get to see you face-to-face here and talk, and that's always great, too. And I just want to say you do great work, and we're lucky here at Native Roots Radio, and I know a lot of people, I should say all the people that listen, but a lot of people love when you're on the show, and we appreciate it and are indebted to you for this great knowledge that you have, and also great power and positive power. So I just want to say a big Pinigi thank you.
Yes, Madzigidads.
Hey, we'll be right back. This is Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake.
It's back to school time, which means getting back to school ready. One important thing to add to your to-do list this year is making sure your child is up to date on their vaccinations. Getting vaccinated will help your family avoid missing out on school, activities, work, family events, and vacation. Keep your family healthy by talking with your healthcare provider or visiting our free vaccination clinics in Minneapolis. Visit the City of Minneapolis website and search for vaccine clinics. A message from the Minneapolis Health Department. Everyone likes a litter-free ride on Metro Transit buses and trains, so pitch in. Take pride in your ride and take your trash off with you when you get off at your stop. You'll find trash bins at every Metro station. Want to help clean up transit stops in your neighborhood? Join the hundreds who volunteer to adopt a stop and keep it picked up. Learn more at metrotransit.org/adopt-a-stop. That's metrotransit.org/adopt-a-stop.
J&S Bean Factory is a native-owned, community-supported, cozy, artsy coffee shop which offers roasted on-site beans, live music, and baked goods. Relax in the beautiful outside patio. City Pages writes, voted top 10 coffee shops. Tucked into a quiet corner of St. Paul's Highland Park neighborhood, this coffee shop roasts beans on-site from the best coffee-growing countries in the world. Located at 1518 Randolph Avenue, St. Paul. The good stuff.
No one should have to choose between a paycheck and their health. Whether it's for a new baby, an unexpected illness, or an aging parent, Minnesotans deserve time to care for themselves and their families. That's why Minnesota Democrats are fighting for all working people to have paid family and medical leave. The time is now. Contact your legislator and tell them to pass paid family and medical leave for Minnesota. Learn more at paidleavemn.org. That's paidleavemn.org. Paid for by the Minnesota AFL-CIO.
Hi, I'm Jane Fonda, and you're listening to Native Roots Radio.
And we're back to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, and this is Robert Pilot.
This portion of the show is supported by Howling for Wolves, protecting wolves for future generations.
Hey everyone, my name is Hana Jihihani. That means cares for them. I was given that name by my Dega Curtis. Curtis goes by Mashke Hanajinga, which means walks on white clouds. I'm a humane policy volunteer leader for the Humane Society of the United States, and I work on animal issues at the local and state level, and it's always my pleasure to do that. I have some news here from 20 WCJB. The source is Stan Mills via KKTV. by Tony Keith and Emily Van Wright, and this is published on June 11th, 2024. Yellowstone National Park. A recent video out of Yellowstone National Park shows a grizzly bear with 5 cubs in tow. Stan Mills operates a YouTube channel showcasing wildlife in Yellowstone National Park. On Wednesday, he captured the grizzlies on camera at the Specimen Ridge Agate Creek Trail Junction. Mills called it an extremely rare encounter. Park officials agree. Park staff told KKTV that it's unclear if all 5 of the cubs are from the same mom or if the grizzly seen in the video may have adopted some of them. Quote, 5 cubs in a litter are the most we have ever observed in the park, at least from 1959 to present, the period of the park's history we have good records for, Linda Versaces with Yellowstone National Park wrote to KKTV. In Yellowstone, the average litter size for a grizzly bear is 2 cubs. Approximately 49% of the cubs survive their first year. Visitors should be aware that all bears are potentially dangerous. Park regulations require that people stay at least 100 yards from bears unless safety in your car as a bear moves by. So we'll keep an eye on those mama bear and her cubs to see how they're doing. I'll keep checking in to see if there's new information and let you know about it. 4th of July is coming. I'm going to be talking about this until July 4th. So have your dogs chipped now. Make sure they have their license tags on their collars. Secure your yard. Make sure there's no place they can jump over, crawl under, and please keep them indoors. Even the most well-trained dog gets scared and takes off on the 4th of July. And the 4th of July, statistically, the most dogs go missing on the 4th of July just because of the noise and the sound and the craziness. It really is. One of the things I got Wanda for her collar, it's called a roam tag. And what it is I could find her on my phone. So I could see exactly where she is at all times. So I'm really happy that I have her. So she's overly chipped. So she's chipped. She has her chip. She has her tag on her collar that has our phone numbers and names and her name on here. And she also has the roam tag. So I could go on my phone to see exactly where she is. So I'm happy that I have all of that for her because I don't know what I would do if I ever lost her. It would just be devastating. We did lose a dog once years ago. Our Chihuahua, Mickey, Robert and I were out of town and we had a house sitter and Mickey got out. It was a thunderstorm. Who knows how he got out, but he did. And he was lost, for 24 hours. But it was really, honestly, the worst 24 hours of my life. And I never want to go through that again. So anyway, keep your dog safe. Here's another meme I found that I thought was important. When you see animals in need, please help them instead of hoping someone else will. You are someone. Years ago, I used to feel that way. Like, why isn't anybody doing something about that? Or that's an important issue. I hope somebody's working on that. And then finally one day I was like, well, you're somebody, Wendy, and you could do stuff too. So you need to get involved. So find some way to be involved. And that's why I became a humane policy volunteer leader for the Humane Society of the United States, because I felt that working on policy and laws and ordinances and getting those things passed in your local area is really important, and it helps animals. So that's why I do it. And there's, no matter where you are in the United States, the Humane Society of the United States has volunteer opportunities. So check it out if you want to do it. I mean, even if you go to your local shelter and, walk the dogs or, go in and, brush the cats or clean their kitty litter or whatever floats your boat, it's always good to volunteer in some way, at least you feel like you're doing something, right? You feel like you're doing something, and anything, no matter how big or small, people are like, well, I can't really get out. I don't have the time to do that. That's fine. If you see a post on Facebook about a lost dog in your area, share it. That's helping. If you have a few dollars to give to your local shelter or to an organization that helps animals, you could help that way too. So you could foster an animal. That's when you take in an animal that's not, out of the shelter. They live in your home until they find their forever home. So that's really a special thing to do, and I really applaud people out there who foster cats and dogs. So here's another little meme that I like. You can't trust every hand you shake, but you can trust every paw. I definitely do believe that. Dogs don't have a mean bone in their body. They're just here to make us happy, I think. Exactly. Here's the new 5-second rule. I've been talking about this. It's not really new, but you need to know it. Place the back of your hand on the pavement. If you cannot hold it there for 5 seconds, it's too hot to walk your dog on it. The little paws there can really get blisters, and if it's too hot, that's it. When I walk Wanda, I kind of always walk on the shady side of the street where there's the most trees, because I don't want her to get hot and damaged or her little paw pads to get burnt and blistered. Here's a thought. Ask a wildlife rehabilitator what they need instead of buying fireworks that terrify wildlife. Robert and I used to always go and see the fireworks every year. We used to go to Stillwater, Minnesota, and watch them over the St. Croix River, and it was really a beautiful thing. Until I really learned, I didn't know back then, how these fireworks really affect wildlife. There's little animals that have, squirrels that have their babies and deer that have their babies, and they're in their dens, and they just get terrified and they take off. They just sprint and go out of fear. The flight or fight kicks in, and they're gone. And then they can't find their way back, and their babies, die. Birds flying in the air literally have heart attacks and fall from the sky. And not only that, the fireworks really are just pollutants. It pollutes the ground, they pollute the water, the fish eat the debris. It's just really a horrible thing. I really wish that fireworks were banned. I really do. And another thing is that a lot of soldiers with PTSD, this really affects them as well. They have flashbacks, and it's just really horrible for them. So anyway, with that, I will give it back to you and Haley. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Haley.
Hey, thanks, Wendy. You are listening to Native Roots Radio. If you have been listening to the show, you are part of our resistance. We need to resist, divest, join a group, run for office, vote, and free Leonard Peltier now. We'll be back tomorrow.